right, well, welcome to the January 8th CNAB Public Developer Meeting. We've taken a long break over the holidays and we're just reconvening. So we're all kind of a little bit misty, as you could probably tell from the first 4 minutes of this meeting. I think probably we ought to start with a quick round of the room update for people to just kind of say what they're currently working on, what their current interests are, and just give everybody a chance to reconnect, and then we'll dive in on the agenda. Radu, do you want to start that, and then you can focus on taking notes from there on out?
Sure. Trishant and I had a quick meeting earlier this week to chat about the security spec, and the main takeaway there is that there are a bunch of PRs open on the spec repo, and please have a look at that, comment, review that PR, and we can take it from there. Go, Silvin.
Yep. So lately I was focused on getting GRAP in line with the last move on CNAB Go and made a release. What else? I reviewed all your PRs, Matt, on the specs. Quite good, and I need to find some time to review the security spec, which I think is really interesting for us. So next one, Chris.
I have honestly not been super active on the CNAB stuff lately. I've got a bunch of other things that I've been working on internally, but I see the topics on here are pretty relevant in terms of CNAB to OCI and moving that to the CNAB.io org and whatnot. So I've been working on other things.
Ralph, you can pick Ralph since he's already unmuted.
I was going to say I have to choose. Yeah, there we go. Ralph, we can hear you typing.
Oh, that's not good. Just dropping the names in. I have been doing what Matt was talking about, which is essentially trying to unearth myself in emails and figure out what the next steps actually are, as opposed to the next steps that I might have remembered taking or thinking about taking 4 weeks ago. So I'm actually ready to launch. Who hasn't gone?
I haven't gone. I've been having a lot of fun updating Porter to use the latest CNAB Go and Go modules. That's a joke. It hasn't been fun. It's been 4 days and going. Fixed the bug with CNAB Go not compiling for Windows at all. So it tests now every time it runs now. It tests on Windows too, which is good. And otherwise, I don't know, not a lot of CNAB stuff actually. It's just a whole bunch of Porter stuff lately. I'd like to get more into CNAB with it. Fun.
Can you please mute if you're not speaking, please? Thanks.
Morning. Similar to Carolyn, although so mostly working on Porter since the beginning of the year. Chimed in on a few of the CNAB spec PRs, so I'm watching that queue. Otherwise available to help where needed. Oh, I reviewed Trishank's security proposal PRs. All look good to me. I think we're going to talk about that in this meeting. That's it. Am I the last one to update?
I think Tiny Trishank and Tiny Jacob haven't gone yet.
Why didn't you go first? Sure. I've been, before the break, I did some work on CNAB Go, fixed some bugs in the Kubernetes driver primarily. Still working on that. If anyone else is interested in working on supporting the outputs part of the spec in the Kubernetes driver, please let me know. I'd love to work with you. Otherwise, I might get to that in the next month or two, but I'm not sure. And yeah, I have another PR up. It's in the discussion for implementing referencing by digest and the Docker driver. That's pretty much it for me right now.
Hi, Trishang. So, like Radu said earlier, I finally finished those CNAB security spec. PR. Sorry about that. It took so long. I got digressed with another project at work. But the PRs are out. The only thing outstanding, I would say, is the meta PR 300, which ties all of them together, introduces stuff in toto. But I think it's more important to knock out the sub PRs, which get into the juicy technical details. So the conversation between Radu and I is that we're thinking we'll get it merged to master if ever, once we get feedback from everyone. We got feedback from Glenn, from Juan. Thanks, guys. More eyes would be very helpful to make sure that we all agree on this, like basic minimum viable product kind of approach. It should work with Notary out of the box, and Radu has done some testing and it does, right? So that's the cool part, especially at CNAB-to-OCI. We're also working with a Python implementation just to make sure that different code doing the same thing, and the bundle runtime should be able to validate the same thing produced by a different tool if we wanted to. Something new has come up, which is a lot of companies are getting together and working on Notary V2, which, yes, Radu's discovering Python goodness, finally. Too much go. No, I'm joking. But the interesting thing is that a lot of companies are getting together and coming up with Notary V2. Who knows how long that will take, but that will come this year, I think. The primary thing they're interested in right now is that you keep the Notary metadata from a separate server from the OCI index. And right now they want to merge the two. But that's something that will get out of the box for free. That'll be great. Yeah, that's it from me. That's it from me. I just won, people interested to Justin Cormack. Yes, exactly. He was the one who gave a really interesting talk I heard at KubeCon. I wasn't there, unfortunately, but he led the charge on this, and I'm glad to see something finally going.
We actually have an agenda item to discuss how we should approach the changes, the expected changes in Notary and OCI versus our security spec. So we could chat about that a bit later.
Yeah.
You have some time to loop back to that one. Anything else? Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's it. I just would like more people, more stakeholders to take a look at the PR and make sure everyone's happy with it, right? That's the important thing. Let me know if you have questions. I'm happy to answer your feedback. Okay. In the meantime, like I said, Radu and I are switching gears from writing the spec to writing the code. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay, and so I've been working on right before I left for the holidays, I worked a little bit on the CNAB REST implementation. I need to go back and check and see if I left any PRs open there. And then I've been working on the claims spec. This time I added an agenda item to circle back to that a little bit later. But I think that spec is low-hanging fruit, so I think we ought to just wrap that one up and push it out the door so that we can really focus earnestly on the next stuff, the security stuff. That's it for me. We can kick off the agenda. The first item that I intentionally bumped way up to the top to make sure that we got this was, I believe we voted like last November to add Silvin as a committer on the CNAB spec repo, but it didn't get done. No, the configuration didn't get added, so I just wanted to re-verify that we were all in agreement that that should be done, and then I will take care of that immediately after this meeting. All right, knocked off the first agenda item. Okay, what's next after that? Stable working draft for CNAB security and distribution. This is the one we were just hinting on. Radu added that, so I'll let Radu pick that up and go with that topic.
So exactly like Tishank was saying, we're working towards a stable draft for the security spec, and we've already have a working version for CNAB-to-OCI for a couple of months now that is stable and we know works with some OCI registries. The main question here is whether we should strive to have a 1.0 release for both of those in the next few months based on the current implementations, or given that we expect changes in both OCI Artifacts and Notary V2, should we approach this as having stable working drafts that we support, but decide on 1.0 when we know the scope of changes that are going to happen in both OCI Artifacts and Notary v2. The main difference would be us releasing a version 1 and then immediately releasing a version 2 that updates to the changes in OCI and Notary versus having a fully stable 1.0 once those changes are finalized. I think from the implementation itself, there's nothing changes because we're going to support the current versions of OCI and Notary until there's new versions of those, and then we release 1.0. It's just a matter of approach and us deciding when something is 1.0. What do people think?
I think the OCI generally moves quite slowly. So, and well, it moves slowly, and then the adoption from the registries will take quite a while. So I think that if we wait for registries to support the next version, that might take too long. On the Notary side, it's pretty unknown because I think, to be honest, I haven't been involved in those conversations. It could move quicker, but it's more the OCI side that I'm a little bit worried about waiting for. I think they're still trying to get their V1 out, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the tough being the Notary and tough being the unknown is if we had one of the two, I would feel good about cutting a release because then we can kind of sort of predict what class of breaking change we might hit. But if we have 0 of the two, then, you know, worst case, we end up with Spec version 1 going out, then, you know, Tough being finalized and a new version of Notary coming out, or I don't even know if they're going to alter Tough, but a new version of Notary comes out, we have to break the spec again. New version of OCI comes out, we have to break the spec again. And we're at version 3.0. So I kind of would like to at least mitigate one of those two if it's possible, and it doesn't require us to wait a year.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure. So Notary is a specific implementation of Tough, right? So I don't know that it's going to be backwards compatible, incompatible changes to Tough that the Notary v2 folks might want to see. Some of them say yes. We're really not sure. So I agree with you in the sense that we should just go. In fact, it's not even Notary v1. It's like 0.6.0. So technically, so we could consider that v1 for practical purposes. I think we should just go ahead with it, release a 1.0 based on that, and say, look, v2 changes are coming, but there'll be a different version of the spec. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Just to be clear, it doesn't actually change the workload for us, right? It just changes what we stamp the particular.
Yeah, that's right. Because we have to support the current versions of Notary and OCI, we have to implement that right now, and then we're going to have to update anyway whenever Notary updates and or OCI.
Correct.
Do we anticipate changes to the core spec because of either of these? Well, let me ask it a different way. Assume the core spec doesn't change. We could be on the security spec 2.0 while we're still on the core spec 1.0. Do we care about that, or is that cool with?
And we can even be in a situation where we are on core 1.0, security 2.0, and registry 1, 2, or 3, depending on whichever updates first and in which order.
I mean, isn't that the whole point of having them a separate spec, so we can't do that? I mean, that's fine.
I worry that if we don't cut a version, people who develop tools on top of this may say, oh, it's not yet ready, so we need to wait. So I think at least if we cut a version, then people are more likely to adopt it.
Yeah, or worse, people will just say, well, you know, it's like with packages when you don't tag your releases in Git, and all of a sudden you've got people tagging against a whole bunch of different SHAs, and you're like, everything's incompatible. So maybe that's a good argument right there to stabilize something so that we give people a target.
Okay, then we're just going to have to agree that we might end up having frequent updates to either of those specs. And if we're okay with that, then again, the workload itself and our implementation will not change, just whatever we tag as stable or 2.0 that is going to change. So if we are all on the same page, then I'm happy with any decision here.
I don't see how you're going to avoid rapid changes to the security environment, given the state of all the tools involved. I think you're going to have to end up doing this anyway.
All right, is there anything else we want to make sure we get on that particular item, or can I move us along to the next one? All right, so the next item is we have other repos to move. So we've got CNAB-to-OCI and signy. We're going to move those under CNAB.io. Radu, is there, you added that agenda. You added a bunch of agenda items.
Sorry, everyone. The main question is, from the GitHub org perspective, is there anything preventing us from moving a bunch of other CNAB-related repos in there, or not? Or do we want even to have experiments and other repos in there? And the next agenda item is related to that as well. Both for Rust and Python, we ended up having a bunch of custom bindings to CNAB-to-OCI to access functionality from other languages. We might need a common repo for those as well, and it might make sense for that repo to live under CNAB.io as well. And if you want to move them, is there any other infrastructure we need to set up for the repos? CLA, DCO, I'm not sure what the requirements are.
I do think we have to switch to DCO on everything that's under the CNAB org now, for JDF.
And then from the CNAB-to-OCI part, the only thing we need to do is pass by legal. We did send them a mail around the time of the Docker split. So, and we kind of phrased it that it's low risk and all that, but they haven't gotten back to us yet. So Silvin is re-kicking that off again. We don't see a problem. It's just one of those things we have to do because it needs to be done. In other words, it's been signed off by product and engineering. It's really just legal who say yes.
And on signy, I think we can just move it. I think we've cleared all of our internal hurdles for that. So, and that I think would be good to move over because of its relationship to the security spec that we're trying to work on. And then we, like with having Duffel as a reference implementation, having a standalone security tool to serve as a reference implementation for some of those ideas, I think is a good idea for us. Okay, anything else on that one? Okay.
A security tool called Locky.
We could do one for Kiki too. I don't know what I was going to say before that, but okay, so Radu has one on here asking to please review the latest PRs on CNAB Spec.
Those include the security PRs and the claim PR spec.
Yeah.
And there's also a bunch of one that explains the DCO requirements, sign commits, that's low hanging. So.
Yeah, and I think there was one that where the person just needs to sign the DCO, but it was an interesting change fix that might necessitate us releasing an errata of the core 1.0 spec because there was a false statement made in this, an incorrect statement made in the spec. So maybe we should actually table that one for next time and talk about next time what we want to do when releasing very minor erratum-based fixes to the core spec, because I'm not sure we've done that. Well, I'm sure we have not done that process before.
I think we haven't, but I remember reading bits about it. I think it doesn't need as stringent check by everybody. If it's spelling mistakes or obvious errors, we can just fix them. But yeah, we should definitely make sure that everybody's aligned around that.
And assuming that author comes back and signs the DCO, we should be ready to actually walk through that next time. Anything else on that one, Radu, on reviewing PRs? Okay, so I had one on the claims spec. The main thing I wanted to suggest was that we just, I have some time that I can focus on that, and if people are okay with that, I'd like to just push that one toward completion fairly soon. I know that Porter uses it. I think that some of Datadog's tools use it, and I know that Duffel uses it. So it would be good to just kind of get that solidified. Jacob had one rename issue in there that I actually agree with, but I'm scared to make that change because it changes one field from the name to the name installation, which totally makes sense, but we have 2 implementations that use it already. So if you have a second to kind of weigh in on a couple of those claims issues, that would be good. And I'll just keep working on the spec, and anybody else who's interested in pushing in PRs or reviewing or whatever, we can just keep going through on that. But what I'm kind of hoping, what I wanted to propose today was that we look at having, sort of having that in final draft state by maybe mid to end of February, and get that shipped out the door pretty quickly.
Matt, to what degree does the claims spec work or relate to the last agenda item that just got dropped in about distributed store, distributed state?
Store would implement the claims spec. So,
I actually was thinking about state inside claims.
Is that one of the items, or are you just?
No, I'm actually thinking so. I'm wondering whether the spec, in this case, I'm just asking, I'm wondering whether the spec in the claims has any statement that would prevent stashing state in claims or would require change to do that, things like this. I'm just thinking about that in terms of state management design going forward.
Yeah, we actually explicitly put a section in there that would allow storing a state because of systems like Terraform, where they assume that you've got some kind of state. So we just have sort of an opaque data storage field in there.
Great, fantastic.
Hey, Matt, I have a question about claims. I haven't caught up with your PRs yet. Have we been thinking about tracking the actions that have been performed on a bundle beyond just the last one? So that there's kind of an audit trail of like, this is the install, this is how it went. I did 3 invokes, I did an upgrade, etc.
No, I don't think there's anything specific to that in the claim store PR. We should. I will look at that very carefully and see if there are changes that need to be made, or if I don't know if we explain how claims are stored and retrieved, but because a claim has a name and a revision ID, it would be fairly trivial to be able to store multiple ones and then retrieve them. I think our file backend implementation is way too naive.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be really interesting to think about if we could support that, or if that's something that would be required by the tool to support. It'd be nice to understand that, like where the line is drawn for something like that.
Yeah. Jacob, what were you gonna?
I was just gonna say, yes, I have been working on a distributed claim store, and it's an API, and yeah, you can query the history of claims for a given installation. So that allows you to, like, you can call that API and then get a claim back that's got the parameters that were passed in last time to it. And then you can modify it and then pass it back in when you run an operation. I need to take another close look at it, at that PR. I think I just had a surface level comment last time, but.
Any way you can share that? I know we're jumping the agenda here, but it's something we've been thinking about as well. Given that with the Docker split, the runtime story for Docker app was our platform, and that's no longer the case. So we're looking at solving that problem in some way. And so that's why we brought it up, because we thought it would be a good discussion to have with you people. But yeah.
Yeah, I would love to. It might. right now the API is GraphQL based, but I was thinking about switching it to protobuf, and then I could at the very least share the proto, and then we could have multiple implementations, but we could maybe kind of have that be a semi sort of spec standardized thing. Yeah, but I really want to open source it as soon as possible, but it's probably going to be a little bit, unfortunately.
Is this just for the storage of the claim?
Well, the API I'm building actually handles installations and something we're calling workflows internally as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it goes from storing claims, querying state, and actually executing installations.
Because on the Porter Duffel side, I've been working on plugins, RPC plugins, so that we could have various backends and be able to store claims anywhere, and then let other tools be able to use those plugins and not have to like re-implement it all over again, and maybe be able to share them. So it'd be interesting to kind of, when you're ready, see what you've got and kind of compare and see if we can come up with some common way of working with these.
Yeah, for sure. I could probably swing doing a demo at least.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, so on that, to tie those two together then and be done with them. So if there are things in the claims spec that we should make sure we change to make that kind of stuff easier to do, I guess now to February would be the right time to do that. And yeah, anything we can do to help work on a distributed claim store would be excellent.
Actually, the biggest thing to me is having some standard way of having identity tied to a claim, like of who generated the claim or who applied an action. Obviously, like pretty much any production system is going to need to be able to have that audit log available. And we explicitly say that we don't handle that kind of thing right now, I think, in the spec. But perhaps like a custom map or something like we have in bundles would be enough for implementations to use. But yeah, right now I'm just kind of storing that stuff on the side.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, if you feel like filing a quick issue about that,
yeah,
that would be something to collectively work on figuring out what the best way to do that is. Because I think that would be nice. It's going to be necessary in enterprise use cases.
Yeah. Thanks.
So I dropped an item on here that just says update on Microsoft's usage of CNAB and Porter for the stuff that was released this week, and thought that Ralph might intro it. And Ralph, I think, got knocked off the internet. He wrecked the internet. Carolyn, do you know enough about that stuff to say anything about it?
Which part? Sorry, I missed it.
The example stuff in the CNAB, the repository of CNAB Azure examples that got released last week.
I wouldn't be able to do it justice.
All right, we'll push that one off till next time.
Okay.
Basically, a bunch of new CNAB, a bunch of the existing Azure examples have been ported over to CNAB to make it easy for people to execute those, and the team that manages a lot of the Azure documentation has jumped all over CNAB and is doing some cool stuff. So we'll share. Maybe we can get Ralph to do a demo of that next time.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to sign Ralph up for work when he's not here to say no. And looks like the final. Oh, go ahead.
I'll make sure I add that to the agenda.
Final item on here is, should we parse digest from the image field? There's an issue 166, and Jacob's the one who added this, so you want to take that one away?
Yeah, this is a pull request. So I opened a PR a little while ago to pull images by digest in the Docker driver, which is the same thing that we do right now in the Kubernetes driver. But turns out we've got some discussion around what digests actually are, and whether we should like parse them from the image field of an image, or if we should only use the content digest that's been explicitly added, that's part of the image object. So I think most of the context is in the PR already, but if we could get some more eyes on it, that'd be great. I've got some opinions. I think this PR introduces a new digested ref method on the base image struct. That's really just a convenience method to get a digested reference that can be used for pulling the image using Docker or Kubernetes, and then just returns a bool to say whether or not you have a digested ref. So the question right now is mainly just like, should that method return the content digest, return true only if the content digest is explicitly there, or should we parse it from an image if it's potentially there as well? And there's also the question raised by, I can't remember who raised it now, but about what content digests actually are in the context of Docker and OCI images, which obviously we need to figure out as well. And so far that hasn't really gotten any discussion on GitHub, at least. That is CNAB Spec 287. I can actually link that quick. It's linked in the PR.
Does anybody, I'm too hazy on this to weigh in right now. It's been a long time since I thought about digest. Does anybody else have anything they want to talk about on this one, or should we follow up in the issue queue after we've all reminded ourselves about what digest mean? Silence means none of us can remember, Jacob. All right, so we'll follow up on that one. We should probably add that back to the agenda for the next meeting too, so that one doesn't slip through, because that is one we should at least be able to give a good canonical name for. This will not be the only time that particular question crops up. Okay, I think that brings us to the end of the agenda as it stands now. Let me make sure nothing got added in the last couple minutes. Okay, any additional things we need to bring up and discuss today, or are we good until the next time? All right, I think we are good then. So we were our meeting schedule is back to its regular 2-week cadence, right? All right.
And we should probably just re-advertise that on the every other week where we don't have a CNAB core meeting, we have a security or a registry meeting. So if you're interested in those, make sure to check out them.
Yeah, in that meeting, probably it would be good to set some goals for when, if we are going to cut a 1.0 final release, when we want to do it.
Yeah, I agree.
And then we can, you know, carefully track the work on that one too. So, okay, anything else? All right, excellent. It's good to see you all again. Happy New Year, and we'll reconvene for this meeting again in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks.